I think my uncle murdered his daughter. IF19 think my uncle M34 murdered his daughter. When my cousin Olivia died, she was only 6 years old. She had fallen down the stairs in her house, breaking her neck. The image haunted me, her tiny body lying at the bottom of those stairs. It was Aunt Lizzie, her mother, who found her. The horror she must have felt is unimaginable. At Olivia's funeral, Aunt Lizzie was inconsolable, sobbing uncontrollably. I was her babysitter for years, so I was grieving deeply too. But my Uncle Jesse? He was calm, almost too calm. When he stood up to give his eulogy, his voice was steady. He spoke about life being unfair and God calling Olivia back because she was too precious for this world. While everyone else was a wreck, Uncle Jesse seemed at peace, which didn't sit right with me. Still, I told myself not to judge. People mourn in their own ways. As the service neared its end, my aunt pulled me up to Olivia's casket for one last goodbye. I didn't want to go, but how could I refuse her? As we stood there, Aunt Lizzie weeping, something happened that I'll never forget. Olivia's eyes snapped open. For a brief moment, her lifeless body stared straight at me. My blood turned to ice, and I froze in terror. Then, just as quickly as they opened, her eyes were shut again. I thought I was going mad, but when I turned around, Uncle Jesse was there, unfazed. He looked at me with this unsettling smile and whispered in my ear, "It will be our little secret. You will tell no one." I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. The image of Olivia's open eyes haunted me. But then Uncle Jesse's words, it was as if he knew what I'd seen, and that chilled me even. Weeks passed, and Aunt Lizzie struggled to cope. Her grief was endless, and it broke my heart to see her like that. She asked me to come over to help pack up Olivia's things. The house was heavy with sorrow, and everywhere I looked, memories of Olivia flooded back. The stairs where she died, the toys scattered across the floor, it was overwhelming. As I began packing her room, the air turned cold, unnaturally cold. I could see my breath in front of me, and then I saw her, Olivia, standing in the corner. Her once lively skin was now pale, her neck twisted at an impossible angle, just like the day she died. She stared at me, pointing to the nightstand, terrified but unable to ignore her. I opened the drawer and found her crayon drawings. The drawings started off innocent, pictures of family, but as I flipped through them, they grew darker. One showed a man, clearly Uncle Jesse, covered in blood. Another showed a little girl crying as her parents fought. Then I found one that made my stomach drop, a drawing of Uncle Jesse cradling a limp girl with her head flopped to the side while the mother stood crying nearby. My heart raced. Could Uncle Jesse have been involved in Olivia's death? Just as I pieced it together, I heard a voice behind me. I turned to find Uncle Jesse standing in the doorway. I froze. He stared at me and then spoke calmly. "So, she came to you too?" I bolted out of the room, running past him and out of the house. I didn't stop until I reached my car. Shaking, I pieced together what I'd seen. It wasn't just a tragic accident. Uncle Jesse had something to do with Olivia's death, and I was next. I needed to warn Aunt Lizzie, but as I fumbled with my phone, I got a call from her. "He's dead," she screamed into the phone. "Your Uncle Jesse is dead. He'd fallen down the same stairs as Olivia and died in the exact same way his next." Weeks later, I moved in with Aunt Lizzie. She was completely broken, barely eating or speaking, and I was all she had left. Despite everything, life seemed to move forward. That is, until the night they appeared. It was late. I was cleaning up the kitchen after dinner while Aunt Lizzie watched TV. Suddenly, I felt someone behind me. I turned around, and there they were, Olivia and Uncle Jesse, both standing in the kitchen, their heads twisted grotesquely, just like when they died. Olivia held her father's hand, her lifeless eyes fixed on me. My heart raced as Uncle Jesse stepped forward, picking up a notepad from the fridge and scribbling something down. He handed it to me, and it read, "You didn't let me explain." I didn't understand. What was there to explain? Just then, Olivia tugged on her father's pant leg, and he handed the notepad to her. With a shaky hand, she wrote in her childlike scrawl, "Mommy did it." It took me a moment to process the words. Mommy did it. It hit me all at once. Uncle Jesse wasn't the one who killed Olivia. It was Aunt Lizzie. Olivia had been trying to warn me all along, and Uncle Jesse had been trying to explain the same thing before I ran from him. My heart pounded as I realized the horrifying truth. Suddenly, a noise behind me made me turn. It was Aunt Lizzie. She stood there in the kitchen, her eyes dark and cold, holding a large knife. I knew then that Olivia wasn't the only one she had hurt.